Okay, well, thank you guys for coming out to this PLC meeting. For those of you watching the video that may not know who I am, my name is ALEKS. I'm from Christian County High School here in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I'm currently enrolled in graduate school through the University of the Cumberlands, and I'm in my final class, which is EDOL 647. I'm taking it this term, spring 2 of 2016, with Dr. Michelle Reynolds. The PowerPoint that I've created is entitled ALEKS Math to Improve Student Achievement. An introduction to this PowerPoint, why I'm doing it. Math scores from American high school students continue to drop in comparison with the rest of the world. So basically we need more students to be proficient in math. What I plan to determine is if our RTI program, which is called Assessment and Learning in Knowledge Spaces, or ALEKS, is beneficial to student assessment data in math class. So, the study is going to consist of 9th grade students from Christian County High School here in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. The purpose of this, I want to demonstrate whether or not the ALEKS program has a direct correlation with student assessment data in math classes. And I also want to show that RTI methods are essential and are needed if schools are going to raise the number of students who are proficient in math. There's currently no studies that show directly how the ALEKS program affects student achievement. And currently there's no peer-reviewed research that shows how the ALEKS program works as a long-term form of RTI, just because it's so new. Okay, so this is the literature review topic of it. This is all the research that I did about RTI and about why we need to improve our math scores. So the first heading that I have here is called Steadily Declining Math Scores. Teenagers in the United States have slipped all the way from 25th to 31st in the world among developed countries in mathematics since 2009. Even our top students in the U.S., our top 1%, are basically still 2 years of school behind Shanghai and China, who statistically have the best math scores in the world. Some of the challenges that face schools today, research has shown that there is a direct correlation between parents who are actively involved in their child's education and their overall student achievement and mental health. And if you come to our school, and you guys here with me have learned this, that we don't get a lot of parent involvement in our schools. So basically we have to not only be the teacher, but we have to be the parent as well. And that's pretty devastating to our kids, and it hurts them. The poverty rate, the average poverty rate in the United States is about 20%. So basically 1 out of every 5 kids grows up in poverty. Our poverty rating is a lot higher than the norm. I believe our free and reduced lunch total was about 70%. So we have a lot of kids who grow up in poverty. Next heading is called Using Technology in the Classroom. Technology can definitely be a good thing in the classroom, especially in a math class, but it can also be a hindrance as well. So you need to be able, if you use technology, you need to be able to kind of control it and make sure that the kids are only doing what you want them to do when it comes to the whole technology thing. The people who came up with this quote go on to say that eventually there's going to become a time when students are just basically going to be working on the computer at their own pace. That's going to be their education. It's going to be all individualized. It's going to be basically like a computer-based curriculum where they have to go at their own pace, and the teacher kind of acts more of a mentor and not as a teacher. And here's the references for that. Okay, so the first research question that I looked at was, what effect does the ALEKS program for freshman math response to intervention, or RTI, have on students' assessment data? The reason why I chose this question, my classes struggle with basic math skills, making it more difficult to teach the high school Algebra 1 concepts. There are no studies, again, that show directly how the ALEKS program affects student achievement, and there's no peer-reviewed research on how the ALEKS program works as a long-term form of RTI. Okay, so the sampling for this lesson, or for this research study, was my 3rd period class. I did that because I've got a pretty good split in there. I have 23 students, I have 14 males and 9 females, I have no IEP students, I have 7 students based on past benchmark data that have been identified as being below grade level in math. And I currently, out of those 23 students, I have 11 students who are currently enrolled in our ALEKS program here at Christian County High School. So I have 11 who are and 12 who are not. So it's a pretty good mix, which is why I chose this class. Okay, so basically what we did here was we gave our students a pre-assessment before our last unit of study, which was over exponential and polynomial functions. It was a 20-question multiple choice assessment, very similar to our common assessments that we give at the end of our PLC cycle. Students then completed the unit of study, and those students that were identified below grade level and the ones that are in ALEKS are using the ALEKS program in addition to what we're doing in the regular math class. Then at the end of the unit, students take the summative assessment, which is again another 20-question multiple choice assessment. Very similar to the pre-assessment, different questions, different numbers, things of that nature. That way it's not the same. So what I want to attempt to prove is that the students using the ALEKS program will improve more than the students only enrolled in the regular math class. I want to show that the ALEKS program helps students improve more than the ones who don't have any RTI at all. So the test we use, again, this is our post-assessment that we use. I know it's kind of hard to see, but again, it goes over exponential functions and polynomial functions. Here's page 1, page 2. This gets into this kind of ends the exponential part of it and goes into the polynomial part. We talk about factoring, GCF, classifying polynomials, adding, subtracting. And then here's questions 16 through 20. Okay, so the data collection went like this. There was data collected from the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, and they were compared. Data was also collected, and I want to thank Ms. Thorson for letting me do this. Data was also collected from the students who are currently enrolled in the ALEKS program. I want to see how long they had been on the ALEKS program, how many topics they've mastered. I wanted to get any type of data that I could to help me with this. Growth from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment is going to be compared. I'm going to compare all the students, and then I'm going to compare the ALEKS students with the non-ALEKS students. And then I also want to look at just the ALEKS kids and see if there's any type of a relationship between how many topics they've mastered on ALEKS and their not only their score on the post-assessment, but also their growth from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment. Okay, so this chart right here basically shows the overall class grade. This is all 23 of my students. The pink bar shows what their pre-assessment was, and as you see, they weren't very good. I think the highest one I had here was a 60. And the reddish bar, the darker bar, that is the post-assessment. And as you see, every student improved from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment, which is good. That's what we want. Then I wanted to take the kids enrolled in ALEKS and compare them to the kids who were not in ALEKS. Okay, so again, every student improved. If you look at the ALEKS students, the kind of the tannish bar, the smaller bar, that's their pre-assessment, and the darker bar is their post-assessment. Their pre-assessment average was a 28%. These are the kids that are enrolled in ALEKS. Their post-assessment score was a 69%, so they improved 41%, which is a pretty big jump. Then I looked at the non-ALEKS kids. They started a little bit higher. Their pre-assessment average was a 34%. Their post-assessment average was a 74%. So that right there is a 40% improvement. So pretty much about the same. Yes, the kids in ALEKS did improve more, but it's not a significant difference. This right here compares the improvement. I wanted to see how the improvement was from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment. I've got a couple trend lines right here. This is for the ALEKS kids. This is for the non-ALEKS kids. And pretty much the data is the same. The students on average improved pretty much the same. Okay, so this just kind of compares summarizes the two graphs that I just showed. Overall, our pre-assessment average was a 31.1%. Our post-assessment average was a 71.7%, which means it's about a 40.6% improvement, which is really, really good. While our students did not outscore the students, while the ALEKS kids did not outscore the non-ALEKS students, their improvement again was slightly better. The ALEKS kids improved 41%. The non-ALEKS kids improved 40%. So again, not much difference there. Okay, so then I wanted to look at just the ALEKS kids. And I wanted to look at their number of topics mastered in ALEKS, and their post-assessment scores. I wanted to see if there was a correlation between the two. Basically, our trend line shows that our baseline pre-assessment score should be about a 35%. That's if I extended this line all the way down to where the number of topics mastered is 0. It should be about a 35%. And their scores are going to go by 1 point for every 4 topics mastered. So if they have 100 topics mastered, then their post-assessment score should be 25% higher than this. So it should be about a 60%. And if you look at the dots, again, they're kind of all over the place. There's not really a correlation between the number of topics mastered and the post-assessment. Because I mean, while I had a student who had a lot of topics mastered, I think this was about 138 topics mastered, his improvement was only 35, or his post-assessment score was only a 35%. So not really much to compare there. And while I had a student who didn't get a whole lot of topics mastered at all, I think this was 117, I believe. They had a 90 on the post-assessment, so they were probably really, really good at that section. Okay, so then I said, okay, well, there's no correlation between the post-test and number of topics mastered. So what if I look at the improvement? So I went to the number of topics mastered versus the post-assessment improvement from the pre-assessment to the post-assessment. And again, we're kind of all over the place. There's not really a correlation here. The baseline improvement should have been about 20% if I take that trend line and extend it. Improvement's going to go up by 1 point for every 5 topics mastered. So again, if they master 100 topics, that means they're going to go up about 20 more percent. So they're going to improve about 40% instead of 20%. And again, I had some students, this one has the most topics mastered, I believe it was 192. They were pretty much right on the trend line, but again, I've got one that improved 70% who only had 120 topics mastered. So again, there's not really a correlation between the two here. So basically in conclusion, all students did improve, which is what we want. Students enrolled in ALEKS did score slightly lower on the post-assessment than the kids not enrolled in ALEKS. But again, their improvement was slightly higher, which is a positive, right? It's not exactly what we were looking for here, but it is a start. It is positive. There's just not enough data to really show that ALEKS is the go-to RTI method. It is only our 2nd year of implementing this. It's actually our first full year. We started doing this in January of last year. So we need more data. We need to be able to compare it to more things. And that's what the next steps are. We want to compare ALEKS data to other pre- and post-assessment data from other units. We want to compare ALEKS data to our benchmark data, which at our school we use Discovery Ed. You may use map testing or some other form of a benchmark testing, but we use Discovery Ed. We had talked about possibly aligning our ALEKS standards with the Algebra 1 pacing guide, just to make sure that the kids that are in ALEKS are working on the same standards that we're doing in class. I don't know if there's a way to do that. We're going to try that and see if there's maybe something we can do with that. We want to be able to research other schools who are implementing ALEKS. Maybe they're doing something we're not. Maybe they're having more success than we are. So it'd be good to get with other schools and bounce some ideas off of them. And then having some type of possible reward system for the students who master a certain number of topics. We did something similar with our juniors this year when they were preparing for the ACT. We had like a tiered reward system depending on how many hours they put in toward getting ready for the ACT. So that could be something we could look at too. Basically, we could say for every 50 topics mastered, they get some type of reward or something. Because I don't think our students that are in ALEKS are really taking it seriously right now. Some are, but for the most part, again, I feel like they're just not really taking it seriously. So we got to have something for them to work for. Okay. So then part 2 of this went along with what I gave you all in our PLC meeting. Okay. So there was a focus question that I wanted to focus on with our PLC here. It says, what strengths and challenges does the mid-year survey reveal about the Christian County High School Algebra 1 PLC group? Okay. Our PLC consists of 5 members, the 3 of you that are here. One of us is in our 6th year of teaching, one's in her 4th year of teaching, and one of us is brand new. We do have a special education teacher that collaborates in 2 math classes per day. And then we also have a math curriculum coach that not only works with us, but also works with our geometry, our algebra 2, and our CCR math courses. So I gave you guys the mid-year survey, which is 4 pages long. I used this one because I felt like we as a PLC, and we've talked about this before, that we have accomplished a great deal this year, and we need to focus on moving forward. What can we do to make ourselves better? And I felt like this survey would best fit that need. 4 of us completed the survey. I didn't give it to our curriculum coach because she's not always in our meetings with us. So only 4 of us completed it. Okay, here's pages 1 and 2. Just I want to show you guys this for those of you that have not seen this before. Here's pages 1 and 2. Here's pages 3 and 4. Each teacher in the PLC was given a copy of the survey during our Monday PLC meeting. I gave this to you when we came back from spring break, which was April 4th. Gave it to you to complete on your own time during the week. And then I came around and collected those on Friday, as you know. The mid-year survey used a scale of 1 to 4 for all their questions. 1 being very true, 2 being, for the most part, true, 3 somewhat true, and 4 not true. And there was a total of 28 questions. Okay? The first section, pages 1 and 2, broke down, it was just questions about meeting management and how members get along. And the second section of the survey was questions about tasks that are completed during the PLC. So what I did was I took all the questions and I divided them into 7 different subsections based on what the question was asking. So the 7 subtopics I broke it down to were PLC norms, tasks, teamwork, PLC attitude, learning goals, instructional practice, and reflecting. And then on the next few slides, I'm going to show you what the results of that were for our PLC. Okay, so the first section of norms. Those questions, again, were related to expectations for behaviors during meetings, norm consistency, and norm productiveness. And for the most part, we gave ourselves 2s. We had 78% of our responses were true, 22% of our responses were very true. So we were pretty much 1s and 2s. And we pretty much agree that we do have our norms and we know what our expectations are when we get together for PLCs. So that was a pretty good section right there. Our task section. These were questions that were related to having clear tasks, tasks related to student goals, and who determines the agenda. And we were pretty much in thirds right here. We had 34% of our responses were 1s, 33% of our responses were 2s. We did have 33% of our responses be 3s as well. So we do agree on the task for the most part. We were at 67%. But we had about a third of our questions disagreed about how much time is spent on tasks related to student learning goals. And this is from our principal being in our meetings, and he has a tendency to talk a little bit and control the meeting and what's done. So we sometimes will walk in kind of not knowing what it is we're expected to do. And it almost kind of turns into a faculty meeting sometimes, and I think this is why we had some of the 3s like we did. These are questions on conversation. These are questions related to disagreements, voicing opinions, and avoiding difficult topics. Now, for the most part, we gave ourselves 1s. 67% of our responses were 1s. We did have some 2s and some 3s. And I thought it was kind of funny when I analyzed this data, we actually disagree about whether or not we have disagreements, which I thought was kind of ironic here. And because we disagree about our disagreements, we don't go into them a whole lot. Which, I mean, if we don't have disagreements, we don't have to. So for the most part, we pretty much agree on what needs to be done, and we get it done. Okay, next one is attitude. These are questions related to attachment to the team, continuation of PLCs, and changes to teaching practice because of our PLC. And again, for the most part, we scored 1s. 75% of our responses were very true. And again, we had just a little bit that were 2s and a few that were 3s. We feel really committed to our team, and all of us really feel like our PLCs make a difference in our instruction. Okay. Our next topic is learning goals. These are questions that are related to student learning goals and how well each member knows them. We were about 50-50. We had 56% of our responses 1s, and 44% of our responses 2s. Okay, so we pretty much all agree that we know our student learning goals. We know our standards. We know what we need our students to learn, what are expected of our students. Okay, our practices section, this was pretty easy to score. We gave ourselves all 1s in all these. These are questions related to administering common assessments, developing rubrics, assessing work, and analyzing work. And again, we scored all of ours 1s. This is probably the easiest part of it because we already know what's expected of us. We know in week 1 we come up with our standards in our calendar. Week 2 we come up with our common assessment. Week 3 we come up with our student engagement lesson, and then we give our common assessment and analyze our data in week 5. So this one's already kind of set up for us, so that's why we give ourselves 1s for everything. Our last one is reflecting. These are questions that are related to implementing interventions, reflecting on teaching and how it affects student learning. And again, we were pretty much split right down the middle. We did have a few more 2s than we did 1s. We had 60% of our responses 2s, 40% of our responses 1s. We all agree this is the area we feel like we need to do better at, which is just being able to reflect more constructively. What's working, what's not working, what do we need to do to fix it? Okay, so some of the areas of strength that are based on this survey, we do have a strong sense of attachment to our team. We do a great job of analyzing class data and kind of knowing what we need to do as far as next steps go when we do our future lessons and everything. We administer our common assessments because we come up with them together. Our PLCs are impacting our instruction, and we're using data to drive our instruction. That's what I feel like our areas of strength are, and that's some of the feedback that I've gotten from you guys as well. Some of the areas of weakness, PLC tasks sometimes are not determined by the consensus of team members. And again, that's part of our principal being in our meetings and everything. Modifying instruction based on student data. Well, I do feel like that's a strength. I also feel like that's an area that we can improve on as well. We need to do better at reflecting on instructional practices, and we do need to spend majority of our time in our PLCs on tasks related to student. All right. So based on our strengths and weaknesses that we've talked about, what do you feel like are some things that we can do to take our PLC to the next level?
So we could take data from our pre-assessments and choose our post-assessment questions from what prior knowledge they have.
Okay, that's good. That's
build
good.
our assessments that way instead of just modifying.
Okay, what else?
Use other teaching strategies other than I do, we do, you do.
Okay, that's good. Use the I do, we do, you do. We know we kind of get into a rut as far as doing that a whole bunch. So, yeah, I agree. Trying some other things, seeing what we can do to work here. So, all right. So based on what I came up with and some of our suggestions you all have given me, this is what I feel like we can do to take our PLCs to the next level. Principal will only be allowed a certain amount of time to talk at each faculty meeting. 1 PLC a month, since we need to improve on reflecting. I think 1 PLC per month should be spent on reflecting. But I like the PLC schedule, and I think you guys do too, as far as week 1 doing our standards and calendar, week 2 doing our common assessment, week 3 doing our student engagement lesson, and then giving our tests and then analyzing our data in week 5. So the reflection from the PLC was good. I feel like this was a real good indicator of what our strengths and weaknesses were. I appreciate you guys being honest with me on this. And hopefully these next steps that we have been talking about should allow us to take our PLC to the next level.